Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Now more than ever, our world needs strong, courageous, and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, you know it, the whole family wins. All right, this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we believe that every wife and child deserves a father who is pursuing greatness. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm so grateful and I'm genuinely humbled that you've chosen to spend the next few moments with me today. Our time is a precious resource, and so I don't take that for granted, my friend. So thanks for tuning in. I am excited about this week's episode because we are going to talk about the secret to having a thriving marriage. Y'all, this is a big promise, okay? This is a big promise, and I hope I deliver. But we're going to jump into it. This has been, from my experience, one of the most impacting things, and studies have revealed from other healthy, successful couples that this one factor is a large contributor to their overall longevity and their health. But before we jump in, I want you to stay tuned to the end of the episode, because I have a special gift for you at the end. You do not want to miss this. So make sure you stay tuned in, okay? So early on in our marriage, probably the first 3 years or so, I just struggled. We struggled in general, but, Sam would say to me often, like, I feel like I'm married to a robot. Have you ever heard that? I feel like I'm married to a robot. You don't talk about your feelings. You don't talk about your day. You don't ask me how I'm doing. And I really struggled. And I know that a lot of the men that I talk with really struggle with talking about their feelings. They really just kind of struggle with opening up in general. They have a hard time with conversation. Now, when we go out with our buddies, crushing some wings and having a few brews, conversation is real easy, right? So why is it that we have a difficult time? I don't know about you, but I'll tell you some reasons why. In the past, I've had a real difficult time with opening up and just getting into conversation. And some of those reasons are, I had a hard time talking about how I felt, what was on my mind. I had a hard time talking about what my fears were, my worries, because I feared that it would be perceived as weakness, right? I felt like I had to be the man, and keep it all on lock. And I couldn't expose anything that I was fearful of or worried about, because I was afraid that my wife would look at me as like a weak man, that I didn't have it under control. I think that in the early days, I struggled with insecurity. And so I feared that if I actually opened up and had a lot of conversation and was willing to talk to her about how I felt and about my fears, that I worried about what she would think. I was insecure and didn't necessarily have the confidence to share about even any of my insecurities, my fears. The third thing was, I felt like maybe if I brought this up, it might be used against me one day. Now, this is not to say that my wife is malicious. She's certainly not. But I think inside of us we have this fear. Some of us have this fear that if we open the door to our heart and reveal those things, that's ammo that then our wives can use against us in the future. And I just want to encourage you with this. It's important for you and your spouse to create an emotional safe space, because sometimes when we feel that way, it's just evidence of a lack of trust, a lack of emotional security in your relationship. But here's the reality. One of your wife's most basic and significant needs is the need for conversation. And like I said, studies have shown that one of the most common traits in happy and long-lasting couples is how much they talk with one another. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't figured it out yet, the secret to a thriving marriage is conversation, having great conversation with your wife. Okay, now I'm going to unpack this. We're going to talk about 3 reasons why conversation is important in marriage. We're going to talk about the 4 conversation killers. And then we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you some great questions that you can ask your wife to engage her in conversation on a deeper level. I promise you, my friend, this is going to help you. This episode alone is going to help you level up your conversation with your wife, which is ultimately going to lead you guys closer together and draw you deeper in connection and intimacy together. That's my guarantee. All right. Okay. So listen, here's the reality. The great husband sets aside time every day to talk with his wife. Now, they might talk about the little things, they may talk about big things, but whatever the nature of the conversation, she enjoys it because he's not angry, he's not demanding, he's not judgmental. And even in more intense discussions, a great husband is informative, is constructive, is thoughtful, and is empathetic. You see, the wife is comfortable to express exactly how she feels without having to worry about him losing his temper or having to worry about conversational landmines or walk around on eggshells. The great husband is never too busy to just talk. And this is the key, you guys. Most women want to talk simply just for the sake of talking. There's no agenda. There's no goal. I mean, for me, that was massive. Just this idea that just to sit and talk with no end goal, I found so hard to wrap my head around. But you think about it like this, right? Remember when you were dating, you would talk for hours, right? You would call her, you guys would text nonstop throughout the day, if texting was a thing when you were dating, if you're a little older. But why did we do that then? Right? Why don't we naturally do it now? Most obviously, it's because we wanted to get to know our wives, or our women back then, the people we were dating. There was this real intense desire to get to know them. They're fascinating. And while we're dating and we're going through that journey, we want to know that we can help her face her problems, to overcome her challenges, because this is kind of the masculine side in us, right? This need to be on mission to accomplish things. We want to know that we can make this woman happy and fulfilled. I want you to hear me say this today, but what we fail to realize and recognize as men is that it was the intimate conversation in the beginnings that triggered their intimate feelings of love for us. And then when we got married, we pull the intimate conversation and we just go back to business as usual. And this feels like a massive withdrawal because it's one of the main reasons why your wife fell in love with you in the first place. So no wonder so many women feel duped, and why so many women struggle in the first few years of marriage, because that big factor is now missing. That constant talking, talking for the sake of talking, the great conversation where you talked about your dreams and your aspirations and the things you wanted for life. I want to give you 3 reasons why conversation is so important in marriage. Okay. Number 1 is conversation is a funnel in which all other emotional needs are met. Honesty, openness, financial, relational, domestic support, affection, and affirmation. These are all needs that need to be communicated through conversation for the most part. Number 2, conversation is necessary for problem solving. You see, conversation is essential for everyday problem solving and conflict resolution. You think about managing the schedules, the social commitments, managing what's going on with the kids and swimming lessons and sports programs and all that stuff. How you discipline your children. All these things can only be resolved with the art of conversation. You see, marriage requires a mutual agreement on most everything in life, which is why conversation is so critical, because that's how you get to resolve. And number 3, conversation, like I said, conversation is simply just another great way to love your wife. This is the hardest for most men to grasp. It's important because it meets a basic emotional need for women, the importance of talking just for the sake of talking. So brother, I want you to remember this when you hear me say it. It's not what you talk about that's important. It's simply that you talk, okay? Okay, so I gave you some reasons why conversations are so important for our marriage. Now I want to give you the 4 do nots of conversations. So the 4 conversational killers, okay? Number 1 conversational killer is making demands. Okay, it's okay to know what you want and to make requests, but the moment they turn into demands, you're starting to make massive withdrawals in your relationship. You're also shifting the dynamic of the relationship from a partner to a master-slave or parent-child relationship. So do not make demands with your spouse. Just make loving requests, okay? Number 2 conversational killer is being disrespectful. Boy, I see this so much, man. I hear this when I'm in the mall, the food court, or I'm in shopping in some store, or I'm downtown, or whatever the case is, man. Some of the things I hear men say to women, I'm like, oh my goodness, I would never say that to my wife. But the best way to end a great conversation is to be disrespectful. And this can be as simply as rolling your eyes. Trust me, y'all know what it's like. Y'all have been there when she said, don't you roll your eyes on me, or she's roll her eyes at you, and you know how disrespectful that feels, right? Now listen, it's okay. And I would say it's necessary to have conflict and disagree, but it's a whole nother level to be disrespectful. So doing this makes it almost impossible to find a mutually agreeable solution. Instead of searching for common ground, you end up being pinned against each other. So if you're listening to this and you're not sure if you're being disrespectful, here's a tip. If you aren't sure, ask her. And if she says it is, right? So again, if that sounds strange to you, flip the script, right? If you feel like if your wife says something to you that's disrespectful, but she doesn't necessarily realize it, and she asks you, of course you're going to be honest with her about if it felt disrespectful or not. And if you felt like it was disrespectful, it was disrespectful because you interpreted it as disrespect. So the same should go for her. So if you ask her, hey, honey, did I disrespect you in saying that? And she says yes, then that's your cue, okay? Don't leave it up to a guessing game. Number 3 conversation killer is expressing anger. And I want you to notice that I said expressing anger. You see, it's okay to be angry. Angry is just a signal. It's just an emotion. And then, like I said, emotions are signals. However, it's about how you handle that emotion. It's how you handle those signals. And if you feel that rage bubbling up and about to spill out all over your wife and your kids, just tell her you need 5 minutes, walk away, cool down, take some breaths, and come back to the conversation. We've talked about this a few different times at the Dad Nation podcast already. So if that's you and you have a hard time with anger, I want you to reference some other episodes in the past to find a ton of great resources. But trust me when I tell you that nothing good will come out of your mouth when it's said from a place of anger, spite, or resentment. The number 4 conversation killer is dwelling on mistakes. Listen, nobody likes that person. Don't be that guy, okay? Don't bring up in the present things your wife has done in the past and use it as ammo against her. Y'all have moved on, okay? So let's leave it in the past. And some of you may know about me. I am a credentialed minister, and so I have done lots of weddings in the past. And so when I would officiate weddings for people, there was a specific passage that I read often in the Bible from 1 Corinthians 1:13 and 1. And it says this: love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. And it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. And I want you to pay specific attention to the phrase, love keeps no record of wrongs. If you bring it up in conversation, you will kill any good buzz or momentum you have in that conversation. Trust me. And here's a really great exercise to do. And I do this often with men. I do this with couples that I'm counseling or walking with in preparation for getting married. What I'll have them do is rephrase that scripture, but basically I want you to place your name in the place of the word love every time it's mentioned. And if you do that, this is how you ought to love and treat your spouse. It's a high calling. It's a very high calling, and it's sobering and it's humbling to read out loud, but this is how I believe we ought to love our wives. So I'll do it for me, and I'll put my name in it just to give you context, just for the sake of this episode. Mitchell is patient. Mitchell is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. He isn't proud. Mitchell isn't rude. He's not self-seeking. He's not easily angered. He keeps no record of wrongs. Mitchell does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. So I want you to put your name in that passage and read it out and ask yourself, is this how I love my family? Is this how I love my wife? Right? So to wrap up, the fourth conversation killer, do not dwell on mistakes. Let what's in the past stay in the past. So jumping back into conversation, how to have great conversation. And here's why it's tricky, because we get stuck in the same patterns, right? We get stuck asking the same questions over and over again. So for example, you probably even tell me what questions I'm going to say before I even say them, because because we all ask them, right? We ask the following questions. How did you sleep? How was your day? How was work? How are the kids? That's basically, that may be a couple more. Now, it's important that we stop asking these questions, or at least we rephrase them in a way that's just a little bit more engaging. Why? Because they're boring and they're overused. Asking the same boring questions are going to reap the same boring answers. So don't blame your wife for giving you the same kind of boring answers, because you're kind of asking boring questions. So it's important to think about asking conversation-generating, compelling questions. This is one of the easiest ways to grow together in intimate conversation and bring unity between your spouse and getting to know one another on a deeper level, no matter how long you've been married, whether it's been 1 year or 50 years, okay? Now, just for the sake of this episode, I'm going to give you some examples of questions that will spark meaningful conversation with your wife. So instead of, when she comes home from work, instead of saying, "How was work?" you could simply say, "Hey, what was a bright spot in your work today?" Instead of saying, "How was your day?" when you come home, you could ask, "What was one thing that you're grateful for today, and why are you grateful for it?" Or instead of saying, "How did you sleep?" you could simply ask, "Did you have any dreams that you remembered from last night?" See, we're asking a similar question, but there's more nuance to it. There's more specificity, and it breaks us out of the mold. And these are just simple questions that we can ask each other every single day. So, for example, my wife and I just did an Instagram post about this just a few days ago, but me and my wife ask each other 3 questions, usually every day. There's some variation of these questions. And the first question is, "Hey, what was a bright spot in your day today?" Or "What were you grateful for today?" The second question we ask is, "What was tough or what was hard for you today?" And number 3, the question is usually, "How can I support you in that tough thing today?" And if you're listening, you're a person of faith, you and your wife are faith-filled people. Instead of asking that, you could phrase it like this: "Hey, how can I pray for you today?" And these questions are so simple, and it's just a quick touching point that can help just draw you together at the end of the day or around the dinner table. I think it's great if you can ask this question around the dinner table and involve your kids into this question. So it's super helpful. Now, here are some more general questions that you can ask just to kind of spark great conversation with your wife. And also, the beauty of this is you can apply this to your kids as well, right? You can ask these to your kids, whether it's at bedtime, when they get home from school, around the dinner table. And I'll just read out a few that I have here. So one question could be, "What are your dreams and aspirations for the future? And how can we support each other in achieving them?" I love this one. "If you had any superpower, what would it be? And how would you use it to make a positive impact?" Number 3, "What are some of the most cherished memories from your childhood? And why do they hold special meaning to you?" Number 4, "How do you define success? And what steps can we take as a couple to create a fulfilling and a successful life together?" And I love this next question, number 5. "Is there a particular book, movie, or song that has deeply influenced your perspective on life? And what lessons did you take away from it?" 2 more, okay? And I love this one too. This is one we just did a renovation on our house a couple of years ago. And this question is great for that. "How do you envision our ideal home? And what elements would make it like a sanctuary for the both of us?" And the last one I'll share with you today is, "What are some of your favorite ways to relax, recharge, and how can we incorporate more of these activities into our daily lives?" So these would be called generative questions or conversation compelling questions, right? And the point of these are to encourage thoughtful reflection and open communication. which will allow you and your spouse to explore new ideas, feelings, and perspectives. Okay. So listen, that's actually just most of this episode. So today is a shorter one because I want to just give you some quick hits. And as I promised, I want to give you a special bonus today, and it is called Igniting Intimacy. 44 questions to connect with your wife and spark intimacy. So this is a guide that I took the time to put together. It's 44 of my favorite questions that you can have for free. It's just a PDF document that you can take and you can have it on your phone. You can pull it up on your laptop for the next time you spend some time with your wife. And they're split up into 4 categories, okay? Questions about your life, about your love, about your leisure, and your fun, okay? Covers a bunch of different areas, and it's so good, you guys. So if you want that, just click on the show notes below, and you're going to see a link that says Igniting Intimacy, 44 questions. And all you need to do is hit that link, sign up, and you will automatically get an email with this PDF that I'll send you. Trust me, my friend, it will level up your conversation game, okay? You're going to connect with your wife on a deeper level, and so why is this important? Because you've heard me say this before. The key to your wife's heart is through conversation, right? Even if you're here and you would say that maybe you and your wife are lacking physical intimacy. Well, for women, the key to physical intimacy is emotional intimacy, right? And that's what these questions are designed to do. So if you want more physical intimacy, you got to think about how you can get more emotional intimacy. If you want more emotional intimacy, you have to get better at the art of conversation with your wife. Does that make sense? All right, my friend, that's it for me today. I hope this episode, though shorter, I hope it was powerful for you. And trust me when I tell you, I really want to see you succeed in your marriage. And if you get this right, I do honestly, wholeheartedly believe that you will join the rest of the most successful, happy couples that have longevity because of the fact that they speak with one another and they've really worked the art of conversation and they talk every day. And so this is going to help you do just that, okay? And if you're watching on YouTube, as always, hit me up. You know what? Here's the deal. Leave it in the comments below. Tell me your favorite question of the ones that you've heard today, or maybe you have a favorite question that you ask your wife on a regular basis. Drop it in the comments below. Let's start the conversation. Hey, see what I did there? So that you can start the conversation with your wife. We have another incredible episode coming up for you next Monday. So enjoy this week. I want you to spend this Monday to next Monday, or whenever you're listening to this, I want you to spend this time focused on asking your wife great questions and engaging her on a deeper level. All right, I'm here for you. I am in your corner. Have an incredible week, you guys. We'll catch up soon.